Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross.
I'm Dan Ream, and can you believe it? We escaped, not a goblin in sight.
Not a goblin in sight.
We are...
I like it when we're not, sometimes I like it when we're not in the dungeon. So
we're with the cool kids today.
We are with the cool kids today. That is without a doubt. So this conversation goes back to early in the year when we talked about, at our school, we did an in-service professional development where teachers teach teachers kind of thing. And we did role-playing games, some board games. And so we brought a couple of our favorite participants of that morning here today. And so I will have you guys introduce yourselves. You teach at the school, so tell us what you teach. We'll just get that started. So let's start with Tara.
I'm Tara Philman, and I teach Family and Consumer Sciences. I've been teaching here at Washington for 23 years, I think, and a long time. Yeah.
I like it when the person that's about to retire goes, wow.
Well, because I have been here even longer, in my mind, you're like still...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's after a while, it doesn't... The gap seems to narrow after a while.
Well, and now it's to the point where I have kids that I had their parents, which is always such a weird place to be as a teacher, when you're like, you had my mom, and I was like, oh.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So you're not alone here. Kara, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Kara Kaminsky, and I am a life skills special ed teacher here. And this is only my 5th year at Washington, but my 13th year collective teaching with a lot of years off for my business. So, and Kara and Tara are the coaches of the cheerleaders
yes,
at the high school.
I was going to add that. We get to talk to cheerleaders today.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure,
this is really cool, and you made that day so much fun, and so we knew we had to have you on the show because your perception of the game is such a unique one. So, well, what I want to talk about first is, what were your perceptions of Dungeons and Dragons before you sat down at the table? Now, Kara, I know you played in, or you came to my game last year and sat as an aide to one of the students in my group. And so so we'll get to that in a second, but what were your perceptions before?
I don't know if I necessarily had a perception one way or the other, but I have a very vivid memory as a child driving past a location on the square where they used to play games. And I remember my mom telling me that was where people went to play Dungeons and Dragons. And so in my mind, it was like a cult sort of, because as a child, first off, I never saw a door into that place, and it was only very late at night. And so I really thought that you're grasping for what you know as a child, and the only thing that I knew where you would go late at night and stay would be like a small group for church, but I knew that they weren't worshiping. So it was a cult in my mind. It was very much just like fantasy sort of world that you were not allowed to be a part of, because I didn't even know there was a door into the spot that they went to. And so it was like a small group of people that met at nighttime to me.
And did something.
But I could tell they were playing a game, but I didn't know what game they were playing. So I knew it was like a fantasy-based sort of world that they were in, that I was not a part of.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. And I think my perception, which I've been proven way wrong at, is that it was actually, I knew it was a game, but I thought it was a game geared at people with antisocial behaviors. Like that they played this because it was the alternative to actually socializing with anyone else. And so I thought it as a very like one-minded, one person only engaging with the game, and just almost an antisocial sort of activity. That was my perception.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I can totally see that. By the way, I've never felt so much more like a nerd than right now, sitting here with these two.
Wait.
Nerds are cool, though. It's all right.
No, this is fantastic. I was like, oh my gosh. check myself and make sure I'm sitting right where I am.
You're actually blushing, Tom. I've never seen you do that before.
It's a little hot in here. All right, anyway. We mentioned, Kara, that you sat down at a D&D game last year during our game club as an assistant for one of the players. I'm just kind of curious what your impressions were at the table, because other people had done the same, and usually it's just they sit off to the distance and they just sort of made sure everything was going the way it was supposed to be going with the student and all of that. But you had like sat down at the table with us, and as time was going through, I saw you like doing, and so then I handed you dice and I said, "Can you start rolling for this?"
Yes.
And so, how did that feel in that moment, like when you finally became part of the story?
Well, I have to start with that. You gave me no fair warning. And I sat down at the table and I was talking to Tom Gross saying, "Hey, do you want to sit back there? You want to sit up here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll sit up here. Like, I've always been interested." And then you warped into some other person so fast. And it took me a good 5 minutes to like gather myself and be like, what? Is Tom okay? Like, I'm a special ed teacher. I was like, is he seizing? And like, what is happening? Because you were a totally new person. And then that was when I quickly gathered, like, oh, like this is a lot of theater. This is a lot of improv. And then I just got super engaged. And I'm very competitive. We both are. And so then I was like, wait, and I felt bad. I was judging my own student. Like, that was a stupid decision. Like, what are you doing? Then I just really, I think you could tell I was getting a little competitive because I kept, I'm sure my face was not a poker face. And then, yes, you did eventually. Like, how about you? And I like that you think that you gave me the dice just to contribute, because I thought you gave me the dice because you were afraid I was going to punch someone if I didn't get an opportunity to do it. So, but no, I was just completely mesmerized. And also by the kids. Like, my gosh, these kids, I have never seen them in the hallway, or maybe I have and I just didn't know them. I mean, we have a lot of kids at this school, but I was so impressed with just these students and their knowledge and their intelligence. And I mean, it was crazy. I was hooked. I laugh that you talk about yourself being a nerd, because I don't know if you remember this, but I remember this. The next day, I walked in to make copies, and you and Mr. Kugler, and I believe you might have been there, Dan, and you all kind of turned around, and you said, I was just telling them how into it you were last night. And I was like, yes, yes. And I said, I know you guys think I'm this, cheerleader, but, I'm a huge nerd. I love this stuff. So I was awesome. It was so fun, and I was so excited when we got to play again. And that was even more fun.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Cool. One memory I have of that is I remember you rolled the dice and you looked around at everybody. You're like, "Is that good? Is that good?" And I remember Robert across goes, "Yeah, that's good."
See, that competitive.
And so that was fun. How about initial impression of playing when you guys sat down on that during the teacher professional development?
I think my initial impression was that I had to go out of my comfort zone, which seems kind of interesting to do, or it might be easy, because as teachers, I think we're always kind of out of our comfort zone. And as cheerleaders, you kind of go into this other person almost that you become. So you have your teacher self and your home self. Those are kind of different people because you have different roles. And so at first I was like, I just don't know how I'm going to feel about this. But I enjoy that. I really enjoy the spotlight sometimes. And my younger self really loved that. But now I feel like I'm a little bit more, don't love it as much. So I was like, okay, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, which I thought was the best part of it, where I really, really enjoyed it. Especially everyone else sitting at the table, when they were getting more into it. That's what was making it so much fun, is the other people at the table, seeing them come out of their comfort zones a little bit too.
Agreed.
So let's talk a little bit about the play experience, probably from that professional development. How would you describe the play experience? You could talk about the game itself, and did anything in particular surprise you? Let's talk about the game.
Okay, so I have to say that one of the most funny things to me was seeing our coworkers in their role. We happen to be paired with Nancy, who is one of the IAs in our classrooms and super professional at all times. And she just embraced her character to the nth degree. She was almost saying inappropriate things at some times. And it was like she was like trying to seduce people during the game. And like
she played a bard.
yeah.
So. Yes.
And we were like, whoa, like I don't know, it was just bananas.
Yes.
And then you had Mrs. Dayhoff, who is like she was just evil. Like she was just wanting to take people down. Like she just wanted to kill people all the time, which was so funny. That's not like her. And then she and I think, were just giggling most of the time. And then,
you had a definite character.
I
You guys had
know.
definite
And I was
character.
going to say that about myself. One thing that this game has helped me recognize is I definitely have a control issue. And I don't like when other people make decisions that I don't agree with, especially when I'm about to die. But then the funniest thing to me, and I told my son this because one of his absolute favorite teachers and basketball coach, who I think is truly one of the smartest men I have ever met. You hear that man talk, you are mesmerized, you are whatever. Literally one of the most intelligent men I know was god awful at Dungeons and Dragons. He was so bad.
Yeah,
He could not wrap his mind around it.
He could not.
And
no.
it is a whole different level of intelligence. And that was one thing I truly learned that game was that like he is one of the most intelligent men. I mean, he could give a speech to Congress tomorrow and get elected. And he could not decide what to do in his role. And he was our leader. And yeah, it was just hilarious. And I love him. And he knew it too. He was like, I have no idea. What am I supposed to do? And he was just looking at us. And it was just funny to me to watch one of the most confident men I know, like literally become so meek because he didn't know.
Yeah, he needed help from everyone.
It
It
just-
was like,
it was
what
like-
do I do?
Yeah,
very-
it was hilarious.
And to his credit, that's the kind of person that could really pull it down because but he was all in. He,
he's competitive.
You tell me, I'll do what.
Yeah.
I just need some guidance and quick to ask for it. And very encouraging. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. From my standpoint, it was fun to see you all like within the game. There are stereotypes of how a barbarian plays, how a rogue plays, how a bard plays. I didn't tell them anything, and you all did. You all went right for the heart of each of those characters, just instinctively. It was so funny.
Right.
Yeah, Nancy knocked me out of my chair. I think I said, "You're the face of the group. You can be flirty." I didn't think I said anything. That's all she needed. And she was just on it. And again, with the barbarian, it was perfect. There's enough of this talk. Let's just pound some people. Let's just...
I was kind of jealous of that. Can I cuss? Like,
yeah.
Because I kind of like to mess some shit up. Like, I kind of wanted to be the barbarian in there. And I was like, why do I have to be the rogue? Like, I really wanted to be that person. Like, I could feel myself, like, flinching because I wanted to, like, do something. And I was like, oh, I'm really good. I was, like, rolling the dice. Like, I wanted a greater role in it. And that, just me, like, kind of watching, if you were going to say, like, oh, what would you want to be? I feel like that would be what I'd want to do. That's not really maybe it is my personality, but like I just like to go in and mess stuff up. And I think that was the fun part too, is that we wanted to go in there and just kill him. Yeah, they're like, just kill him. Well, he's a nice guy. We don't care. Just kill him. Like, yeah.
In our way.
He doesn't do it.
Yeah, let's torture him if he's not going to give us any more clues. We'll just torture him. Like, we were already like waterboard people.
We really were. We went straight for it.
We really
did. It's bad.
Well, but you latched on to what a rogue is, which is kind of hide in the edges and just take pot shots. And yeah, that was perfect too. And it was cool to see, oh, okay, this is fine. But what I really want to do is...
That was hard because I did have to like take myself back, kind of my personality, because the rogue is not. They are watching, which I was doing, but I could, like I said, I could feel myself wanting to tell other people what to do.
For sure.
So I've shared the story on the show already, but now that you're here, Tara, I want your side of it, because I was sitting across the room from you, and we could see each other. And I was playing the game that I was playing, and I just looked up and I made eye contact with you. Something happened at your table, And you and I just started cracking up. And I had no idea what happened at the table, but it was the look that you gave me. And then I started laughing, and then you started laughing. Yes. So can you share that? Do you remember that?
I do
that
remember that, but I think it was because I was trying to process, like, I feel like I had asked Dan a question, but he wasn't coming out of his, like, dungeon master sort of thing. And I wanted to, like, do something. Like, no, I need to talk to Dan. Like, someone send me someone other than the dungeon master. He just stayed in the role. And then with the seduction and stuff like that, I just could not stop laughing.
It was so funny.
Because she is such like a quiet, calm personality, and she was just trying to seduce the daylights out of the person that Kara and I just wanted to kill.
Yeah.
And so I know that is what it was. It was like me just pure joy coming out of me because it was so funny. Like telling my story about playing Dungeons and Dragons has become like a party trick for me. Like my husband will say, like, you need to tell them about you playing Dungeons and Dragons. Because I went home and probably talked about it for an hour and laughed about it and came back and thanked you guys. And that was, it just made that day so much better because it wasn't what I expected. I would rather have been in my classroom in my mind, like grading some papers. That's the first institute where I was like, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that. I didn't get anything done in my classroom, but I have not laughed that hard in such a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an overstate, or in a way it's kind of an obvious thing, I guess, but I mean, we're all friends anyway, but even as the DM, when I got done with that, there was like an extra warmth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was looking forward to seeing all of you even more the next day.
For sure.
You know,
I texted your wife that night. I didn't even have your number, but I texted her and I was like, tell Dan I loved that. It was so fun.
And I think that is one of the things that gets how people get hooked into the game is you create. I mean, you're role playing, but the emotions are real, and it really does create those, can deepen friendships, I think.
Well, it's a team. I mean, we coach a team. Like, you build a team as you're there, and even though you have different roles, like, you're all trying to do the same thing, and you have to accept everybody's strengths, like Nancy's seduction, and weaknesses, like Eric, and you just have to, so I think I left the same way. Like, I felt closer to Nancy Bevins when I left that.
Right.
Like, it was just fun. So, but just ironic, considering back to my original perception of that it's an antisocial, independent activity. It's actually completely the opposite. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very inclusive game. Like, that was so interesting to me, too, that it wasn't like an individual. We had to work together, and we didn't agree. So that, the teamwork, inclusivity, those sorts of things that we had to do. But besides Kara and I would not say, like, the rest of the people are we necessarily social with. So we were put in a situation also with people that we don't spend a lot of time with, even though she and I spend a lot of time together and finish sentences and do funny things like that. We're a good team and we know that, but that was not our role while we were playing. And so understanding all of that part of it too is really cool.
I have to say, first of all, I think that moment we started cracking up was, I think I sensed that joy. I could, like, the group was having such a fun time, and you'd made eye contact with me. And I was just like, they're having so much fun over there. I mean, I was having fun too at my game, don't get me wrong. But just watching that whole situation go down in that kind of climactic moment, and how much fun everyone was having.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned that about Eric, because the day after I was talking to Eric, and other people were in there, and so he was kind of sharing the story with others, and he said kind of the same thing. He had the same observation that you had when you were watching me in that game, where you were kind of like, what's happening? Like, he said, Dan became some other person, and he started talking like this and everything. And so there's a part of me that's like, I wonder if he was so, like, shocked at that whole situation and trying to process. I don't know, we would have to ask him. I don't know.
I think he was playing a wizard. That's one of the tougher ones. That's one of the tougher ones to do too. You've got the most choices, and
and I do think too, like, because some of my students who maybe on an intelligence scale on a test at school do not perform well. That's why they're one of my students. But you put them in that situation, and the student in particular that I was with that day, like, man, her imagination has no bounds, you know?
Yes.
And so it's a different sort of intelligence. And, you know, I think that's what I kind of giggled with about Eric is that, like, I loved it because he's so black and white that, like, it was really hard for him to let go of that and become, like, just that kind of access, which I know he's, you know, crazy intelligent, but I don't know if he ever really accesses that creative part of his brain as much as he does, because he's a history teacher. He's a fact. He's a, you know, chronological. He's that sort of of intelligence. And so it was just interesting to me, like, just from an educator standpoint, to be like, this is really truly like accessing a whole different side of intelligence that I see. And then I paired it with that's my student. I mean, she was trying to change the name of her character. Do you remember this? It was you. She was trying to change the name of her character. She was trying to make up a whole nother world. You kept having to draw her back in because she was taking it 3 degrees to the left. I mean, just how she was even coming up with some of this stuff. I was like, where are we even coming up with this stuff? It was crazy. So
yeah, having someone with that way of looking at the world is definitely new to, like, in my experience, to the game. But what impressed me so much is how the other kids just roll with it. No pun intended. But they would just kind of go with it and be like, tell us more what you mean by that.
Yeah.
And you know, she did not know any of the other kids at the table, and they all kind of knew each other from our game club. But she really made connections with those other kids and knew what their roles were in the game and would ask questions and things. And so I thought that was really cool.
me too.
But if you were to play the game again,
When we play the game again.
Right.
nice, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do need to say I did go home and Google where I can play Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm almost like intimidated walking into a room with people that play Dungeons and Dragons consistently because I know nothing, and that I know some now, but going into that, and I know it is like an inclusivity sort of thing, but it was like, it's a little intimidating to walk into a
Sure.
situation when you've never played or you've played one time. And I know that there's online stuff and that sort of thing.
I think, and you do hear horror stories.
Right.
There are some people in the game that don't get how it can be so positive.
Right.
But almost everybody is so excited to have a new person that you would probably have every other person be like offering any kind of help they could.
Right.
Because they would be so excited to see the game grow. But no, I think we just have to talk. We have to do like a faculty night.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That would be a ton of fun.
It'd be amazing.
So, when you play again,
Thank you.
Yes.
when you play again, would you do anything differently? And would you choose, you've kind of already addressed this there, would you choose a different role to play?
I think differently. I probably would interact with the character a little bit more because I was the rogue, that I didn't necessarily feel like I could jump into the character as much. But I think that was part of my role too, was that I wasn't necessarily the ringleader of all of the things. So yes, I would choose to be a barbarian, but I know that they don't always make the smartest choices, which is my personality too. So maybe that is why that would be the one that I would go to, because I have a closer connection to that. It'd be a simpler role for me to play.
Yeah, and there is something freeing about throwing caution to the wind. You know, that's
Yeah.
not, I'm just gonna do. You know, I'm a teacher. I'm a cautious person.
Yeah,
This is not a cautious character. I'm just gonna.
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I'd do anything differently. I loved my role.
Yes. Other than, I mean, it didn't get. It got a reaction. Maybe not quite as much as Nancy's, but when you said, "I'm just gonna grab," can I just grab this guy in a headlock and
Yeah.
I'm just gonna drag him? Everybody was like. And as a DM, you love those moments because it's like, oh, we're going this direction. I
Right.
did not expect that. Cool. Let's run with it.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
was.
we were all
fun.
ready to torture him.
We really
like
were.
we really just wanted to torture him. Like, who
Well,
cared
why-
about his wife? Like,
And
why were we asking if he had a family?
and like,
just
why were
torture
we
him.
bringing him to this little enclosed room? That's
Yeah.
so stupid. We could have just killed him in the woods.
I know.
Stupid. It didn't
Well, you kind of needed him to get there, but then once he was there,
But we could have tortured him to the point that he almost
Just
died.
told
and-
us.
yeah.
this is the other. I don't know if I told you this, but when he actually led you to the hidden place, he said, "All right, I'm out," and you're like, "No, you're not."
No, excuse me.
Yeah, you can't lead us to a dark room. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna bring you along with us now.
We went mean girl.
We
did. We did. We went very mean girl.
We really
We
did. We really did. Yeah, we did not care about his
No,
well-being or that he was like half drunk or anything
No.
like that.
No,
Poor
I forgot
Vadid.
that we got him drunk first.
Yeah, we did.
We did do that.
We
I
did
forgot about
try
that.
to. We tried the nice route.
You
That
did.
didn't work.
No, the rolls did not fall.
No.
Nancy did not roll well in her
Yeah.
charisma check.
No. We tried to give him a few pints and
Yeah.
it didn't come out.
I'm so jealous that I was not asking.
It was a good one.
This is fantastic. It's so much fun. Okay, so reflect on your experience and how might students benefit from in your mind, in your experience, how might students benefit from role playing either in a classroom setting or even in a social setting? Just in your experience.
I can start that if you
Okay,
want,
yeah.
because that's truly like the bane of what special education is, especially in life skills. I mean, my students struggle with social situations that's their biggest weakness. So we try to role play all the time in terms of positive interactions, negative interactions, practicing what we're doing in those situations. I mean, even today we were working on money, but we weren't just doing money. We were role playing being a cashier and how to ask for change and what you do if they don't give you the right amount of change and they don't give you enough change. How do you ask them or how do you correct them? And I mean, we role play all the time. So I just think it's an essential part of learning for kids. But I recognize I teach a different population than Tara does.
But I do think running the preschool in my class, we have to, there's lots of times that we're using our imagination, and that is not easy for every kid. And so we try to take it back to like the decision-making side of things. Like, okay, so we're not comfortable role-playing. Let's make some decisions. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that sort of atmosphere? And to get out of your comfort zone a little bit too, because they don't always want to go and play kitchen with the preschoolers. And so you do have to role play. You do have to, do some different sorts of things. So it's getting people out of their comfort zone, but then also becoming something that maybe you are a little bit more comfortable with and figuring out where you fit. And I think that that's probably the best thing that I've seen is that with this game, I think you can kind of find your own place. And even if you're not comfortable in your real skin, maybe it is, another thing that you're comfortable with. And maybe that is like a home for those kids. And so working on just, social skills, decision-making, their imagination, creativity, all of that is, I think to me, is a lot more real world than some of the other things we ask our students to do.
When you were talking about that, I was thinking, are you talking about the high school kids or the preschool kids? And I thought, it didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter, yeah.
There are some kids that just don't live imagination, pretending, all of that is not natural for them to do. And so we have to teach play, which is so interesting because that's how kids learn is through play. But very quickly do adults, we don't want to play anymore. And we also learn that way as well. And so sitting down and having conversations and that sort of thing, we actually is kind of a part of play and talking to other people. And so it is just a great skill to have even when you're not comfortable with it.
You good?
Yeah,
This has been wonderful.
I'm processing. I'm kind
Yeah.
of taking all this in. I hadn't thought of it in terms of like a different facet or side of intelligence, but I think that's a cool way to look at what the game can bring out, and a lot of the research and stuff we've seen just corroborates that it's really useful in a lot of clinical situations and beyond. So
Yeah. Well, this has been great.
Yes.
It really has. Your reaction to it was just heartwarming for me, and I think
Yeah.
for you as well. Just that you had so much fun. playing this game, because we spend a lot of time playing it. But like you said, it's sometimes can be not exclusive, but you end up playing with the same people all the time.
Right.
So bringing some new people in has been just a lot of fun, and getting your experiences and you know, I've been playing since 1980, so for a little while. But and so to see someone like you guys who are brand new to the game, but like colleagues, to see your joy and your experiences, and watching you, but then also watching you watch the kids. It's just it's really, I don't know. There's not a word that I'm looking for exactly, but it just has been. I think it makes me believe that what I do is right, with the game club, and and you know, working with helping kids to learn how to play those games. That it's more than just playing games. That it's something larger than that. So I appreciate you both for that opportunity. So I guess what I would say is, to our listeners, if you have questions of Kara and Tara, you can reach out to us, and then we will pass it on to them. It's teachersofthedungeon@gmail.com. That's the best place to give those long-winded questions if you're like me. You can also catch us on the social media, Teachers in the Dungeon at Facebook and Instagram, at Dungeon Teachers on Twitter, and then you know all about the YouTube page. I'm wondering what kind of pictures you're going to put with this one on the YouTube page.
I've got some.
You've got some ideas. Okay, great.
Oh, geez.
So be sure to check out the Facebook page or the YouTube page to catch this episode with the images and all that kind of good stuff. So I guess I'm Tom with Dan and Kara and Tara. This is a smooth landing, let me tell you. Thank you all for joining us here in Teachers in the Dungeon. And remember, keep rolling those 20s.